Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autopsy with Maddie P. Girl. I'm your host, Maddie P. Did you miss me, Queen? I missed you. What's going on in the Autopsy universe, you ask? Well, first and foremost, do you see the lighting? That's right, girl. That's right. And I'm already getting lighting blindness because I nearly had a second one sitting right there. And it was so bad. And I was so washed out. But I looked great. The skin looked so good. Okay. And speaking of skin, actually, have I talked to you guys about Pan Project? I feel like I have, but if I haven't, Pan Project is where you use all of your beauty supplies before you go buy new ones, okay? And I have been crushing it at the Pan Project, but I am stuck with the Charlotte Tilbury bullshit under eye in 001 fair. It ain't fair. That was bad. But let me tell you, it sucks. It really does suck. You see the orange kind of? If I don't use a new puff like every single fucking time that I put on my makeup, it's brown. I'm putting actual bronzer under my eyes. So part of the Pan Project is fantastic. And I don't walk into Ulta every other day and buy a $40 product that's made in some bullshit factory with some bullshit packaging. Let me tell you, they hand you a piece of plastic for $40. That's fucked up. Sorry, girl. But what's going on here? If you watched last week's episode, you know we are entering a 4-week series, girl. Last week I discussed this series. This week we are in week 1 officially. Are you excited? I'm excited. What is this plan, Maddie? You're talking fast. There's a lot going on. You're also wearing an Old Navy shirt. Oh, that's on sale. That's why I'm wearing the Old Navy shirt. It looks great. Thank you so much. So these 4 weeks, we are aligning ourselves, we are aligning our souls, we are aligning our spirit to be the best that we can be, okay? It is built for the sober curious. Do you have to be sober? Obviously not. Are these suggestions much like the program? Mind you, yes, they are. Now, if I happen to have a week where I'm talking about something and you love that week and you're like, I need that. I need to answer these questions. I need to get into this work. You can just do that week. You can just do a set of questions. You don't have to follow along. Okay. I encourage you to, but you don't have to. Second thing, during these podcasts, there is still going to be information that you can suck in, even if you're not partaking in this 4 weeks. Okay. If you're not partaking, you can still get some info from me. Okay. I'm still making this viewer friendly. And honestly, to be real, not like my views are going up fantastically or anything, but there is more. And I'm happy about that. Okay. Like yesterday, I forgot that it was Thursday. I scheduled my podcast, so it was up at 10. But I kind of forgot it was Thursday and I didn't post, and 2 people had already watched it and I didn't even post, which that sounds like nothing. But when you sit behind a camera like this and you put so much time into something, to just have a few people that watch it, and like I've had a few people come up to me and talk to me about it, it is the best feeling in the entire world. Because let me tell you, when I get up from this podcast and I go walk around in my life, I forget that I fucking podcast. I really do. I don't forget in terms like I'm always kind of thinking about the podcast in terms of like working on it. And I discussed, I like to go to work with work in my head, you know? So like when I'm at my job, I'm kind of like double tasking a little bit. It keeps me from hating my life. It works too. And I forget, you know, that I make a podcast outside of these 4 walls. And it's kind of coming to life that I do indeed do that. And I can take pride in it, even though nobody watches it. And I love that about this podcast, okay? I love that it's going somewhere. That's really sweet of it. Now, Maddie, do I just watch this podcast and you tell me what to do for these 4 weeks? There's a website for that. I created a website. Created is strong use of the word. I used Canva. My phone keeps trying to hook up to GarageBand. I don't understand. It's pissing me off though. So there will be a website that you can follow along, okay? And each week, we are going to kind of go after some character building defects. Or not defects. What is the word? Like humility, kindness. We are seeking certain philosophies each week, okay? we're aiming it towards something. We're aiming at building our humility. We're aiming at building our vulnerability, our spirituality, our heart and our mind, and our spirit queen. So week 1, the main deal is vulnerability. And let me tell you something about vulnerability, babes. I had to learn vulnerability within myself. Okay, way before I could learn how to sit down in front of this camera and be vulnerable, let alone be vulnerable with other women in the program or who share sobriety with me before this podcast. Okay. And I realized when people are asking for vulnerability, they're asking for this of me, in order to move forward in my life. I'm like, girl, I like to lock myself up. Okay. I like to lock myself up and put my heart in the furthest tower to the east that you can possibly find. You ain't getting to that shit. And I got the key and I swallowed it and I already pooped it out. So you can't have it. Okay. And I realized that if I trust myself, I can be vulnerable and be actually dead ass for real honest with myself. And from there, I learned and I grew and understood vulnerability in other people and out loud. Okay. But when I say vulnerability for week 1, I mean within yourself. I mean, be fucking so for real. Be so for real right now. This does not have to be anybody's fucking business. Okay. The way you go about it, the way you go about yourself, the way about, if you discover some trials and tribulations you'd like to share, that is fantastic. If you find some trials and tribulations you would not like to share, fantastic as well. The point is that you are vulnerable with yourself. And through that, we aim at some point to reach a little further in vulnerability. Okay. And some of you have vulnerability with yourself. So this can be aimed for your vulnerability with others and with your life, because it does save lives. I'm a good example of that. So week 1, I'll read for you. Week 1, we dive into the unknown. We seek our greatest fears and troubles. We aim to discover what is truly weighing us down and keeping us from becoming our best selves. Keyword of the week will be vulnerability, like I said. And the thing about me when I first got sober was I weighed so much. And not sounded bad. I did weigh so much, but my heart and my soul was so heavy. A lot of people experience lightness, not having one to some extent. Mine was so heavy, and I've talked about this, thinking myself into oblivion, thinking myself into a mess, when we're thinking ourselves out of it. And it created this huge log within my heart and within my spirit, genuinely. And I was a weight of bricks walking around, and I wanted all the bricks gone at once. I wanted them gone at once. I didn't understand that I had to take the bricks out personally, one at a time, and fucking examine each one and put it where it belongs, which is far away from me. And I want to be vulnerable. I know about my experience and about what it looked like. Yeah. And I have said it before. I have said it a many time, and I will say it a many time again. We are not a result necessarily of the good things that happen to us. Okay. We are a huge amount a result of our pain. 90% of us is a result of the bullshit that had happened to us in the past, or that we caused, either way. And oftentimes for me, especially, I was definitely a product of my own fear. And a lot of people don't realize that you are also a product of your own fear. And talking about that and learning about my fears and learning what was wrong with me is what propelled me forward in sobriety. Okay. And we have to do that as sober people. I'm exposing you to this now as a sober curious, maybe, or just want to better yourself type of person. And, I also learned that we can't understand who we are because we don't listen to ourselves. And the main thing that you are going to need on this journey for week 1 is complete solidarity and time alone, time in the quiet, time to contemplate and time to understand your depths. Because sometimes it takes a while of quiet before we can even hear the first hello. And I had not listened to myself genuinely for years, essentially. And that is a painful thing when you realize that you are not that person and you're just kind of like, oh my God, I thought I was listening to her. I thought I was myself this whole time. I indeed was not even myself. I was not. You do not have to be an alcoholic to experience that whatsoever. You do not have to be an addict to experience those depths of losing self and of losing your soul. This is a very human thing. And it is designed, this program that I'm doing right now, these weeks are designed for the norms, okay? Going through sobriety and all of that, we have a place to go. And if you have troubles, you need to seek help. That's not what this is for, okay? I urge you to seek help. Well, what did I do when I placed my heart on the highest, furthest, most far mountain in the entire world of the Himalayas? It took a lot of quiet, like I said, but I was very discouraged when I couldn't hear her. And I was very discouraged, and I'll talk about that, because I low-key felt like she was dead. And I kind of was like, is she coming back? Like, do I exist? Is this real? Like, am I going to be okay? Is this going to happen? And I was scared, and I meditated and meditated and meditated over and fucking over again. And I don't want you to take that lightly. There's a reason that I fucking repeat myself all the time, especially when it comes to meditation. That was the number one thing that brought me back to her. Because not only did it teach me to be silent and reach into myself, it taught me patience with myself. And it taught me that it didn't matter what the outcome was going to be, that I was fighting for myself. And that I shouldn't be so targeted on exactly what the outcome is going to be when I haven't even heard her yet. And I couldn't sleep, obviously. I couldn't sleep. Like many of you know, I didn't go to treatment, and it was very hard for me to sleep. It was very hard for me to rest, okay? Sorry, I'm getting a little hot in here, girl. This light's kind of intense, okay? And I'm not sure this is the healthiest thing to do, but I did it anyways. I realized when I couldn't sleep that the things that were coming up and why I couldn't sleep were the very things that I needed to get rid of to move forward and to understand my heart and to understand my life, okay? These were very deep, dark things that were hurting my soul so bad that she could not rest. And I took that seriously, and I took it as a learning opportunity. When I couldn't sleep, I would give up on the sleep aspect and target whatever the reason was I couldn't sleep that night. Some nights were restless, to be honest. Some nights were not a lot of sleep. And it was a lot of work going through that. And a lot of times I didn't. I shut the door and I fucking drank as many bedtime teas as I could, and I figured out how to go to bed. And the reason I say that's not the healthiest is it's person to person. Some minds don't reason with that well. And it's easier to shut the door until tomorrow, which that's fine. But if you're someone like myself, I gave up on that and understood that I could utilize that time to see where I'm really coming from. So when I was in great pain, it became a learning opportunity. And that is something I want you to walk away from week 1 with, the learning opportunity and understanding that when you are down, when you are upset, this is a glance that not a lot get straight into your soul, and straight into what you really think and what you truly feel. And, you know, that's like, it's about what keeps us up at night. And week 1's a lot about that. It's about the things that really taunt us. And, we show so many signs of it, and we do map it out for ourselves. But it's hard to get to the bottom of that, which is why we have a set of questions that I'll divulge shortly. Let me tell you too, when I was in active alcoholism, I couldn't even remember a lot of the stuff that had happened to me on the other side. When I started to get clean, when I got sober, divulging some things with close people with me, I couldn't fucking remember some of the shit that had happened to me. And I went through my camera roll at one point and was just like, oh my God, so many memories and so much pain that I genuinely carry around that I actually can't even fucking remember, but they became a demon because I pushed them out and like basically manifested into a whole problem, a whole issue. So just because you forget it doesn't mean it's there. It's waiting for you to try to fall asleep. It's playing the game with you, and it's waiting to catch you when you least expect it. And I think I said this on the last episode, but there does come a time in everyone's life where you're going to have to clean up the mess that you fucking made. Whether you have a problem, whether you don't, whether you're a saint, and whether you spend most of your life doing the right thing, you've made a mess. At some point, you have made an absolute mess, and you are going to be faced with it, and you're going to have to clean it up, even if it's something you carry around alone. And this is helping. I just want to help you to do that. Okay, I just want to help you to do that because it was really hard for me. And I talked about this before, but like I said from the very beginning, I fell into getting sober, okay? And I wanted this to be about my heart. And I was like, how do people stop lying? Like Googling this shit, how to be a better person. What are these steps people take? Like, what do I actually do though, in order to make this happen? So that's what we're doing, okay, here. And I'll get more into that. Anyways, I forgot that a lot that had happened to me and I really had to map it out. Sincerely. So that is why this week revolves around a set of questions instilled to help you understand and to really be able to reflect in your heart of hearts. Okay. May not know it now. You may not get it now, but understanding yourself is a privilege. Like very much so a privilege that a lot of people do not get, do not want, and do not care to get. And at the end of the day, something tells me that we are people that will go a lot further, having understand ourselves and our dilemmas and our issues and the things that make us exactly who we are, not minimizing our pain in that regard and really stepping into the light, like metaphorically, to be healed in a way, even if it's ourself that does the healing. And it is a privilege and it is an honor to like journey into your soul. And it may seem like a lot, it may seem daunting now, but you will realize how thankful shortly after this you are for taking the opportunity and taking the time with yourself. And 99% of healing is simply being honest. I've said this before in past episodes. 99% of it is being honest with yourself, which again was very hard for me. We have plenty of episodes talking about honesty, so I won't go into certain topics because if during these questions you're like, I have troubles with this, that, and the other, I probably have a podcast on it or something similar. And if you just watch the podcast, I probably talk about it. So I don't want to like yap your ear off on stuff that already exists on the internet for you. And so, like I said, the layout for this week will be a set of questions. We say again for the 5th time. These are intended to start your day, okay? If you are following along, you want some great healing. They are intended to be read at the beginning of the day and your day revolve in a healthy thought process around the question. If you find yourself getting upset, you find it too much, we take breaks. There's a reason it is one question each day. And that is not you're not overwhelmed. And you can really focus on the issue at hand, okay? And it is designed calmly. This is not a rigorous thing. If you would like more, you know where to find it. The rest of my podcast episodes. But it is intended to fit into anyone's day, regardless what they have going on, their schedule, their work, their kids, okay? Now, week 1, I already read that. These are the questions, okay? I'll read this first part. Week 1 revolves around a set of questions which corresponds with each day. The aim is to revolve our day around reflection based on the questions. There is a difference in accountability and beating yourself up. Tread kindly. This is intended to build a friend of ourselves and learn to hear our cries in the night. It isn't always comfortable to let our walls down, but we are far past due. Trust yourself and let go. It is okay to feel our pains, but by holding on, we are only deepening our wounds. It is an honor to journey into our souls. We should never skip an opportunity. Our inner child and that voice in your head is crying for more. That was low-key good. I low-key ate with that. Okay. Monday, girl. Monday, we make a pros and cons list of your personal traits. Be honest, be vulnerable. Take your time. Ask for clarity. Get quiet. We all have faults. You are not alone in this. I just read that directly off the website, okay? Now, what did this look like for me, Maddie? What did this look like for me, making a pros and cons list? Let me tell you, I thought the cons were going to deeply outweigh the pros. That's not necessarily the truth, okay? We are a lot more even than we think. If you are not even, you're not doing enough digging. I don't want to say that to come for you. That's not true, okay? If you're not even, maybe you struggle with some self things, okay? The way you view self and your self-judgment. I definitely was like very surprised that I even had any pros left at that point. What were some examples of my pros, Maddie? Some examples of my pros were my kindness and my heart, and my patience. I obviously talk about building patience, but I would say I had a considerable amount of patience as a sober person. I mean, for an alcoholic, I would say I had a good amount of patience. And I was kind, and I was pretty. Pros. Cons. That was pros. Cons. What's wrong with Maddie? She's a fucking liar, first of all. Maddie's a liar. What else is Maddie? She's fucking gluttonous. Let me tell you that much. She's extremely judgmental. And she's angry. She is deeply angry at times. Very much so. And these are just facts about myself. I do not beat myself up over this anymore. I think there is a way to hold yourself accountable for that. And I don't think skip the step where you hold yourself accountable, especially the one with gluttony and being a liar. You have to take that bull by the horns. Okay. But Monday is just about mapping that out so you can see on paper, and you can work accordingly with your cons and your pros and figure out who you are. It's intended for mapping, and it's intended to see where you lie on the scale and what these 4 weeks of healing could look like for you. There are many different directions that we take as individuals in terms of our healing because we're not all the same. We weren't all broken by the same things. Mine is mostly self-based. But if you struggle with some traumas, you struggle with some things in the past, there are other routes and offshoots you can take. This is kind of modeled after similarities in my heart that I think other girls understand as well. Tuesday. What is hurting me the most right now? And what has hurt me the most in the past? Again, intended to open your eyes. These are week 1 and somewhat is a warm up and to get to know yourself. It's an icebreaker week. And I want you to be honest with this. I think morning is the best time for these reflections, obviously. But you could read it in the morning and answer it at night and think on it throughout the day. 'Cause it is hard to think about what's hurting you the most right now. And if you can be honest with yourself on that, of what really is, 'cause it could be that man. It could be something that you're refusing to let go of, and you don't want to be necessarily reminded of that. So just be honest. And you're not aiming for an answer here. Okay. You're not aiming for a solution to either the past or the present. Okay. You are just viewing. Wednesday. What are my fears? What are my fears? Now, when I was asked this question, I was like, snakes, kidnap, the napper, I don't know, the firing squad, like demons. Like, what do you mean? Let me tell you, fears are not presented in the way that we think they are. My biggest fear is snakes. This is not something I have even divulged yet in my sobriety, okay? I haven't even gotten there because my true fears are of judgment. My true fears are of failure. My true fears are of being like everybody else. My true fears are failure and financial instability and ending up with a man I hate at a place I hate. My biggest fears are not living my life the way that I want appropriately and leaving with good experiences. These are the fears that cripple me every day. I do not have time to get to snakes yet. Okay. And I've joked about that. I'm going to hold a snake this year. I probably will. I still will. Okay. I meant that when I said that. But these are real fears that we're discussing now. These are the things that hold you back currently from your dreams, from your life, and from your best self. Okay. That fear, your biggest fear could be leaving that man and not knowing if you'll ever find one again. Dun, dun, dun. Blessing in disguise, mind you. Your biggest fear could be not quitting your job, even though you know there's better out there for you. So these are very real fears. And I want you to assess this based on your life. If you were to look at your life on paper, your job, your mans, your friends, your family, your life actually on paper, and you could fix any of it, why aren't you? And what is keeping you from doing that? Okay, I'm not talking maybe finances are keeping you from going back to school to get this better job. Of course, there are very human things that suck in our life that aren't related to fear that occur based on life because we live life on life terms, okay? But these are the very real fears that I didn't even know I kind of had fears, because when people ask me fears, like I said, I'm saying very real things that we're scared of. But there's a lot more that we're actually fucking scared of. And it ruled my life when my eyes were open to fear and what it really was, and how I was like, I had built. I saw a TikTok on this the other day, and I sided so hard with this girl. I built my life of fear, very simply put. It was out of comfort, and fear is settling. We settle out of fear. And that's very real for me, especially. And this life that I had made was 100%, everything looking around was based on fear. And I still hold a lot of fear. As an anxious girl, this is not something that goes away. This is something I learned to deal with. But once we are open to this, once we understand it, it's easier. It gets a lot easier with time. So that's why Tuesday is fear. Now Wednesday. Oh, wait, that was Wednesday. Sorry. This is like my own podcast or something. Thursday. What is my relationship to myself? I didn't write about this. I mean, I'm sure I did a ton, obviously, when I first got sober. But my relationship to self was destroyed. I hated myself deeply, in the pit of my stomach. Hated myself. And I've said this before, as a self-destructive person, I'm not scared to say it. I was in an abusive relationship with myself. And I did not want happiness. I did not think I deserved peace or happiness or all of these things. And there was a lot of pain, a lot of guilt, and I hated her and I wanted her gone, honestly. And I had to deeply analyze my relationship to myself. And I've been very vulnerable about that. 90% of this podcast is about my relationship to myself. So you can see plenty of that illustrated amongst many episodes if you're struggling. But I really want you to sit down and think about your relationship to yourself. And how do you truly feel? How do you truly treat yourself? It's probably not good. Sorry, love you. Friday. Am I excited for my future? What do I want it to look like? I love the question, am I excited for my future? Somebody had asked me that too. Well, someone didn't necessarily ask me. It was kind of posed in a way that, I think I honestly posed the question to myself, because I think we get asked that in some ways all the time in normal conversation. What does your future look like? Because a lot of life is hope and excitement, and we don't get to know what's next, and that's the fun in it. So that question is often illustrated calmly amongst most humans. So I don't think it was posed necessarily to me for that reason, but I took it as such, if the shoe fits kind of situation. And I was not excited for the future, especially when I first got sober. I don't want it. Like, I literally don't care. Each year is harder. Each year is getting worse. Each year sucks. And I'm not excited for what the future holds for me. Now I am greatly. It is all about the future. Everything is about the future. I mean, it's about present, but the hope exists. A lot of my drive in my life and my love for life is based very much so in excitement for the future, because I don't know what it holds. And this is a fun adventure for me. And because of trusting sobriety, and because I am excited for good karma to punch me. At some point, I will get hit with a bout of good karma. Hopefully. Okay. Now, what do I want it to look like? That's a loaded question. And for some people, that could be a little too much. If that question was posed to me early sobriety, I would say, it looks like for you to get the fuck out of my face. That's what my future looks like. For you to be elsewhere. Thank you. Stop asking me questions. And I mean this in your heart. What do you want you to look like? What do you want the future to look like in terms of who you are and what you put out into this world? This is not a classroom. You do not need to write down your 5-year plan. You do not need to write down financially this. I need to do this. No. Are you a liar? Are you gluttonous? Are you selfish? Are you punctual? Are you patient? Who are you? And can you fix that? Can you be a better woman? Are you excited to become that woman? And who exactly do you want her to be? And it's to instill also some building blocks that by the end of this, hopefully we'll have some serious morals in place. And these guidelines that help me greatly as a sober person, because it is what I truly want to live by as a rule breaker. These morals are things in place that I do not skip on. I do not play about. And That's a huge part of sobriety, is finding that and finding what you fight for in your heart and in your life. Okay. Saturday. Am I ignoring my feelings or dreams? And am I running from peace? I did not know I was ignoring every feeling, every dream that I possibly had. And I was sprinting in the other direction of peace. A proposal of a better life, of a better brain, of a better future was not something I gave a fuck about. A flying fuck, actually, about. And I sprinted from the thought nearly of peace every time, which is interesting. And it sounds like emo. It's like, you ran from peace. Really? Is that true? Do you want to heal right now? How long have you run from that? You're seeing it now, but the option to heal, the option for peace did always exist there. It has always existed there. You've ran from it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this position to where you're looking to better, right? So how far have you run from peace, really? Have you run from it? Are you okay? And am I ignoring all of my dreams, all of my aspirations, all that I want my life to look like, and all of my feelings? And I ignored all of that. And I think it just gives you a good standing, honest, if this is a vulnerability, very vulnerable question with yourself. Cause it's one of those questions where it's like, be so for real. It's like when the doctor asks you, like, do you vape? I can't put no on there. I can't put no. The lungs are black. You would know immediately. It's kind of like that. Like, am I ignoring my feelings or dreams? Be so for real though. Let's learn vulnerability with yourself. Get in a quiet place when we answer this. Spend the day around it. Am I actually, like, this is analysis. Okay. We're collecting data in week 1 is a lot of what we're doing. Sunday, finally, is what is my relationship to alcohol? What is it? And I want you to spend the day thinking about this. I've talked about this before. Every relationship with alcohol isn't good. Okay. I'm not saying alcohol is horrible, like whatever. I'm an alcoholic, so I do kind of think that, but not everyone is an alcoholic. Not everyone is me. Not everybody has that issue. But under no circumstance, obviously, is alcohol good? So you probably have somewhat of a bad relationship. Does that mean you need to stop drinking? I'm nobody's fucking doctor. But this is for sober curious girls. Okay. So before you go back to drinking, obviously we need to assess where we are. And what is my relationship to alcohol? How many times have I embarrassed myself? Yada, yada, yada. And being very real about that, being very real about how it makes you feel and how you seek it out. And if it is becoming a distraction or a problem in your life, financial, whatever it is. Yeah. And, when we start to view ourselves as a whole, which these questions are kind of calling you to do, we become much more gentle with ourselves when we're able to be vulnerable, because we know that we're the only person that sees it. And if we're being real, the only person that can truly be there for yourself in the way that you want and the way that you need is you, because you're there in your brain and you know what you need, and it allows you to be a lot more gentle. And this is just the beginning. These are just some basic questions. Y'all have watched me map out my brain on this podcast. I have learned in front of you about myself several times, through just going through these topics and going through these questions, because the hunt for self truly never ends. Unfortunately, sometimes just when you feel like you're coming to a head and you're starting to get a lot better or understand things, something else happens. And that's why this is a journey of forever with self. Whether you're staying sober or not, I hope that you stay close to yourself and you understand what she truly deserves, which is better. And at least for me, as a young woman, we are nothing until we learn responsibility. If we're being honest, we're a kid until that point. And matching mental health with responsibility and matching these journals and these things with responsibility. Those are the things that keep us alive, and they keep us happy and from destroying ourselves in a mirror. Because a big pride and a big ego is honestly kind of embarrassing, and it sucks. And I had that for a while. I talked about it at the same time that I could absolutely be my own abuser and completely destroy myself. I can still manage to have a big ego. and still managed to have pride, because otherwise I would have stepped away from the drink sooner if I could have gotten pride and ego out of that way. And it sucks to live like that, but we all to some extent have too much pride and too much ego in some facet. Even me as a humble person, see, there you go. There you go. Exactly. And, it's teaching us too that life is so much more than day to day. These responsibilities, these things, this is what shapes us for months at a time. We are immersing ourselves in this and in betterment for months at a time. This is life now. This is not 30 minutes you set aside to love yourself. That's what I'm aiming for, because that's what we gain in sobriety. For you sober, curious people who are wondering and need help, that's exactly what it is about. And it is so much more than every day to us. It is, yes, one day at a time, 1 minute at a time, but our life revolves around a much bigger picture. And that's another thing I'm trying to kind of implement and for you to understand when you walk away, is that life is about forever, and it is about our happiness at the end of the day, not right now, which is responsibility. When I say romanticizing during these days, while you're going through these questions each day, I mean by that to bring your life purpose, honestly, in a way, because it's up to you how magical you see it, how romanticized it is, how beautiful it is 100% up to you, because you're not missing drive. You're not missing focus or whatever. You're missing spirit. You're missing heart, and you're missing life in your bones. This is not an issue with the chemical depletion. You know, a lot of the time it's an issue with who you fucking are, and not being able to be honest with yourself and look at yourself in a mirror. And all of these things help with that stuff, like with focus, with mental health, with like being able to sit still, peace. When I first went into the rooms and first got sober, I could not sit still for the fucking life of me. And I actually talked about this with somebody, that a huge part of it was sitting down and shutting the fuck up. And for a girl like me, that is not easy. And I know that will be a lot of what sobriety looks like for me, is learning that for the rest of my life. I'm sure I'll have to fight the want inside to stand up and scream when I indeed need to sit down and shut up, for the most part. And we're gutting the house these 4 weeks. We are gutting the house. We are building a foundation. We are building the base with week 1. Okay. This is kind of an interesting take too, but I always was spiritual, like we talked about, and I wanted like the really peaceful aspects of life. Like I wanted to be that bitch that I was like, I know I have it in me to manifest money, or like to, you know, be really aligned in a spiritual way, and enlightened and smart and in the groove. Okay. And it started as a little bit at a time of that, right? And essentially me getting sober in a lot of ways was me biting the bullet, because I was kind of experimenting a little bit on the side of, what if I just chose to be better straight up? And kind of realizing that, like, for my brain, that might be what it is. And in reality, it was me kind of learning I have to stay sober too. Like, damn, like for real, this is what it is. Like I have to bite the bullet, and I have to go after that spiritual girl and be all of the things that I thought I could be, and that I secretly wanted, but I was too busy getting drunk, and I would choose that drunk life a million times more. Come to find I was sick, you know, and I had an answer to that, and why it mattered for me to get drunk over having a kind heart and spirit and having a light mind. And to know I was sick, and that was very helpful too. But I just had to do the mature thing and dive into her and dive into who I really wanted, and let go of the fear that I couldn't drink again, and let go of the fear that I might never be able to return to that fast life that I had grown and built brick by brick, honestly. And that's the hard part, is we think that we built these lives that we're leaving. And it's literally like you turn around and it's like a hut made of sticks. Like, bitch, you don't even got a bathroom in there in this life. Like, come on. And that's why to this day I'll say it, and I'll say it again. It's about the art of letting go, sobriety is, but more so peace and happiness. And like our aim in these 4 weeks, which is peace and happiness. And for a lot of people, that means analyzing your relationship with alcohol.
And there is a huge art in learning to let go. And I've said it before, I was not someone who naturally this occurs. I did not think naturally I could let go. And yeah, I'm chill. I'm the chillest bitch ever. Literally could not let go for the life of me. Hanging on full-fledged, like my mouth is on the target. And it teaches us that. It teaches us peace. It teaches us silence. And to let go of our anxieties and our troubles. And yeah, it's all about the art of letting go. And I want you to be exposed to that too while you look over these questions. And also art of letting go, but also retraining the brain and perspective flip. Okay. By the time week 4 is over, I am hoping that a lot of you understand what I mean by perspective flip and by really seeing life in a different light. This is the goal. And the second that becomes your goal, the second that's the answer where you want it to flip, life works with you. Okay. Your brain works with you, and you will start to understand. It gets very, very, very much so easier after acceptance and after understanding the perspective flip. You don't have to stay sober. If you don't have a problem, you don't have an issue, you need a perspective flip. But I'm not here to tell you what to do after that following. But that is a pivotal point in my personal sobriety, and what changes a lot of alcoholics and a lot of addicts in life is completely gutting and changing who we are and our perspective on life. My first bit of sobriety was extremely transformative, as most people. Okay, I don't mean to sound special saying that, but I've only had a few kind of metamorphosis huge moments where I feel like I changed internally as a person since sobriety started. And I've had a few of those, which I've discussed on the podcast, but my life was very transformative. And I was now slowly learning how to slow down a mind that was running absolutely rampant, and whose neurons were destroyed by cocaine, just absolutely destroyed. Oh my God, I always get emotional talking about that shit. Coke makes me so sad. I get so sad when I see people doing coke now because it fucks you up so bad. But learning a sedentary lifestyle and learning that me running rampant sucks and nothing ever good comes of it, which is shit. But rolling with the punches and just trying to slow down simply, that being what the fuck it is, getting a breath, regardless my schedule, regardless what's going on, that's up to me how much stress I walk away with. That is not up to everybody else. That is purely up to me. What I take home with me and what goes home with me wasn't fucking assigned to me. Nothing was assigned for me to bring back the next day to life. I chose to take that shit home. I chose to invite her in my bed. I chose to wake up and all my shit's gone. Like that was a choice I would make. And, we learn and we grow with that, obviously, but the first bit is so transformative. And I have a feeling for some people, even the first week will be very transformative in seeing who you are, and the amount of peace and flip that comes with that. And honestly, this is cheesy, but in a lot of ways, like, we're preparing our hearts for others. I say this often, but I look to my children, because sometimes that's what it takes. It's not easy always to stand on 10. It's not easy to stand by our morals. It's not easy to not drink. It's not easy to be a good person. But when I struggle, I look to kids I haven't fucking had yet. I look to my husband that I don't fucking know. Because I'm prepping my heart for them. I'm prepping my heart for my friends, for my sister, for my parents. This isn't about me. And I had to take me completely out of that equation, and understand that this is for others when it gets hard. Most of the time it's for me, but when things get hard, it becomes for others very quickly, because I can lose sight. And if it was about me, for me, all the time, I probably would have drank a while ago and it probably wouldn't have gotten this far. One thing too I'll expose you to is that reason right there is why alcoholics have to be selfless. There's a lot of reasons, but it is just a rule. It is something that we have to hold ourselves to. Again, like I talk about, these are all things that we hold ourselves to. Do we follow through always? No, 90% of the time we don't. But that's why the rules are in place. That's why it is progress, nothing to do with perfection. Because we're not fucking Gandhi. It's impossible to be perfect. Hello? And we don't get a choice in the matter. And sober people do, because you're normal and because your brain functions at a normal capacity that makes sense. Mine does not. I have to chase these things. I have to seek out these questions each week. If we're being realistic, I have to revisit the fears one a lot. And I've talked about that. And maybe that's me really on a journey with my fears and unlocking that shit. It all revolves around gratefulness and around thankfulness. And I'm really blessed that when I got into the room and I heard gratefulness and I heard thankfulness, I was excited because, like, not tooting my own horn or anything, because clearly there's a lot I do wrong, but I have always been a grateful person. I've always been a thankful person. I was raised as such, and I am blessed again for my home life and for a lot to be grateful for. I've always been a grateful person. I've always been grateful to my parents. Not always, but like as an adult, once I got older and learned my ways and such, even in active addiction, active sobriety. Active alcoholism. Like, yeah, I do fucked up things and I'm a dick, but I would be grateful for my experiences and for my family and friends. And I was thankful for that because I can imagine that can be very difficult for other people. And we all suffer in different ways. Gratefulness and all that does not just come inherently to everyone. I was raised in the South. You know, it's just part of us. It's part of it. And by loving people. So how could I not be grateful for who I am and for them? And that's not easy for a lot of people. So if it's not easy for you, I implore you to look at your gratefulness, to look at thankfulness. Another thing you can add that isn't listed on the website is, I did gratefulness, lists every morning, talk about gratitude, talk about the things that I love, the things I'm thankful for, because there is always one. There is always something for us to be grateful for. Is there water near you? I know I say this all the time, but it is so fucking real. And we look at life like that, okay, I have a cup of water, I'm straight. That's some G fucking shit. How would you not want to look at life that way, right? Like, come on. And I had a lot of pains with my self-discovery. It got harder and harder the more I discovered certain things about myself. It sucked. But I remained very thankful for the opportunity. And each time something would happen to me or not play out the way I wanted, XYZ, I prayed and I was thankful for the opportunity to learn. And that's cheesy as fuck. But like I've told you, I'm cheesy and I mean the shit I tell you on here. And it helped me is to remember to remain grateful irregardless, because it does something for your brain, severe for your brain, something severe for your brain. And when everything was too much, when I wasn't sure, when shit was hard, including like your first week for you, maybe you've been drinking alcohol a long time. Maybe this is the first week that you'll ever be away from it. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is common for you. But I hit a point where if I would get upset, I would freak out. If like things were happening out of my control, had to go outside. Like a child, like a dog. Like when a dog starts freaking out, you're like, let it out. Fuck. Damn. That was me. I need to be let out every once in a while. I need to be let outside. And that's cheesy, but you know, I think quitting alcohol is hard for everyone. Like I said, we all have our own personal relationships. And when you have those moments, because you're learning who you are and learning how you react to things and like what to keep yourself from, what you need to go near, take some time outside. Step back. We are learning pause. And we get towards pause more towards weeks 2, 3, 4, but we are going to learn pause. We're going to learn to pause and think before our actions or do nothing at all. And that's what helped me. I could not pause before my next action, but what I could do is not respond and just be like, wait, this is in the rule book. I can't, like a puppy, you know, and it works because it was hard for me to bite my tongue sometimes or to do the right thing. But if I just say, nope, not talking to you, not dealing with this, I'm sorry, I don't have an appropriate answer, because if you don't have anything to kind of say, you don't say anything at all, including mostly to yourself. So that pause, when we get freaked out, when we want liquor, when we need a moment, when we're strung the fuck out, when we're busy and we're turned like this, step back. You owe it to yourself. Life is not too busy for you to take a beat. And I'm tired of people acting like that's the case. Don't let it then. Don't let it be that way. We can always take a beat. At some point, you have the opportunity to take a beat and you're not taking it. Just like when people say, I don't have time for the gym, and people are like, make time for the gym. This is the same with your mental health. It's like, you can make time though. You can. And I don't mean to sound like a bitch saying that, but like if people can say it about the gym, then I'm going to say it about mental health. Shit. And above all, my healing gave me purpose. my healing, my perspective change, who I wanted to become and who I wanted to be in my spirit was my new purpose. I didn't have a purpose. I wasn't necessarily looking for a purpose. I'm always walking around looking for a purpose. And I've learned that there is like a zombie in me that like will always walk around like this, searching for a purpose. It's a part of me. And even if I don't feel it, I always am searching. And it gave me that. And that was really good for somebody who needed a will to live and who struggled with seeing self really, really bad and was really judgmental. To put all of my energy into something that was productive and that allowed my betterment and allowed my best to come out was a big game changer for me. And it, you know, if you're struggling and you need a purpose, you need somewhere to look to. Like, and I'm not saying like I already had a job, you know, like this has nothing to do with my career and shit. I needed a purpose to be fucking alive. I needed a reason to be here and to try. I needed a reason to be sober. And that looks different for everyone. I was single. I have people who love me. Yeah. But like, they don't care if I'm fucked up half the time, you know, like this has to be for me. And I have to be the purpose. I have to be the reason I'm getting better right now. And that's hard to like find in yourself, but you can. I think it's fun to expose you to like, you do have the power to overcome your thoughts. You do have the power to pause. You do have the power to talk about these deep, weird questions and analyze them in a way that helps your soul. And you do have it in you to be an exceptional human being, and to build these things out of yourself and to be like emotionally regulated. These are not natural character things in myself, guys. This is not who I am. Like now, yeah, but like, this is not normal. This is not natural for me. I'm not a good girl coming on here telling you how to be a good girl. I'm a badass bitch coming on here trying to teach you how to become a better woman. Trying to help you with that. And it seems impossible, especially at the beginning. It's like, what the fuck? But it is possible. Because this is about the evaluation of your soul. This is what's happening. It's like you having your own judgment week. Like, you know, it's like God came up to you and was like, so where are your morals? And you're like, well, don't really have any of those, but do you want to get a mark? You know, and someone told me this too in the program, but if you put as much energy into healing and to your mental health and self-care as you did in your partying and your drinking and your going out, imagine, right? And it was hard for me to understand when I first got sober, or just, you know, learning how to be better, that my whole focus in my life was going out and getting dressed, and like my social life was mostly my life. And like, it didn't have to be that way. And like, we're introduced to that slowly over time. But if you spend as much time and energy in these questions and caring for your heart and mind at the same time, great, fantastic things can come, and we can retrain our brain. And like I said, vulnerability with self is hard. I implore you to push, cry your eyes out. If you're looking at some of these questions and not crying, you're probably not digging deep enough. And you know, it's about that. And you can go to work with these things in mind. You can carry a little bit of a tough spirit during the day and have an internal dialogue going on around these questions to better yourself. You know, you don't have to be the peachy keen girl that day at the office. You could be in your head thinking about the fears. Is that a bad thing to say? I don't know if that was a good thing to say or not, but like, that's how I feel about it. You know, it's like, this takes bravery. And it takes dedication to love yourself. And it takes bravery to realize you could have been doing this all fucking wrong. And like, the way that you view yourself is all fucking wrong. You're going to be upset, and you need to be brave about it. That's what I wanted to say. I finally got it out. I was trying to say it in a nice way. That's what it was. And after the questions throughout the week, we will go through a bit of reflection. How you do this is up to you, okay? I have 3 kind of reflection things that I think work best for week 1. And at the end of your week, comprise a list of where you think you need healing. Seek direction and specifics. When I say seek direction, I mean solitude, I mean quiet, I mean reaching out to your higher power if you've got one, or meditation, asking for direction in yourself, viewing yourself as a mirror. It helps with other people too. There's something called a spiritual axiom I've talked about, where oftentimes when people bother you, it's something about yourself that really bothers you. It's not them, it's you. And other people can really help us map that out. I've said it before, but other people were a big help in my learnings. So yeah, comprise a list of where you think you need healing. And this can range from anywhere from a specific situation to gluttony. This can range anywhere from a little bit of self-judgment to I need to completely flip this attribute of myself on my head. It can be across the board for yourself. And then write yourself an apology letter, which I'm sure some of you have done. I'm sure, I want you to do it again though. Right now in this current state, you have something to be apologetic for to yourself. This is very freeing. I don't even need to go into why. If you're a mental health girl, you probably already know about what an apology letter does for you. But I still write these sometimes because I'm so hard on myself. And then write an apology letter to yourself as a child. And where do you think you abandoned her or him along the way? And what I mean by that, we talked about it as well. If you want to go back, it is 20-something angst, maybe. I've got a couple episodes on it. But when did you stop listening to your insides? When did you turn completely away from who you are and your hopes and your dreams and what you want to be? Because at some point you probably dropped her off somewhere. I discussed it before. I was like 16, roughly. When I go back and I kind of try to pinpoint where exactly I left her, I was 16. But really, then again, I was 22 when I completely shut the door on her. And then 25 when I found her again, and now we can live in harmony and peace. But those are the reflections. Again, these are made through Canva. Of course, this website will be up. And then I have media on here too. If we cannot solve problems with the kind of thinking we employed when we came up with them. That's Albert Einstein. And some book suggestions. These are just if you want to read throughout your week. Atomic Habits, James Clear talked about that. Motivation Manifesto, oh my God, by Bernard Burchard. It's a Brendan Okay, sorry, my camera died. Where were we at? Of course it did. Okay. Motivation Manifesto. Is it a book? It's a book about this big. It is fantastic. I actually utilized it a lot when I was in active addiction, but I love that book. And then The Alchemist by Paulo, whatever, you guys know about that one. And then The Power of Vulnerability TED Talk. Oh my God, it was so good. Life-changing for me. And then I also put the yellow wallpaper. Okay, from when we were younger. I think it just shows those dark, one-page things that I used to annotate and divulge in class were very reflective of who we are as people, and we analyze ourselves in these literatures, things like that. So I think sometimes some of the best books to read when we're going through triumphs, when we're going through transformative moments in our life, aren't necessarily self-help books, but are the classics, are fiction, stories and tales of people who have gone through trials and tribulations or whatever, and they show us who we are because each other is our teacher. Okay. So that's the media aspect too on week 1. And I hope you guys followed along. I hope you are excited to divulge who you are, discover your pains, discover your secrets. And next week we will be discussing humility, and we will talk about what it means to be a better person and what it means to learn from each other, and how we get better. Okay. So, like I said, questions will be on the website, and my inbox is open for any other questions. And I love you guys, and I'll see you next week. I hope week 1 is great to you. Bye.